The large silver ship landed softly on the special pad built just for this moment. Earth had never seen anything like it before. It seemed to glow from within, as if made from captured starlight. Princess Lyra stood at the window, looking down at the blue planet. Unlike the rest of her kind, she felt only wonder, not the usual mix of pity and mild disgust. The Astra were the most powerful beings in the known galaxy. They lived for hundreds of years, could lift 10 times their weight, and many could move things with their minds. Next to them, humans seemed so small. "Princess, it is time," said Vex, her chief guard. "The humans await." She nodded, smoothing her shimmering dress that changed colors like an oil slick in sunlight. Her skin had a faint purple glow, and her eyes, large and completely silver, showed no emotion to those who didn't know how to read them. The ramp lowered, and bright earth sunlight poured in. The Astra group walked out to meet the humans who had gathered. There were leaders, reporters, and guards everywhere. "Welcome to Earth," said the human president, bowing slightly. "We are honored by your presence." Lyra gave the formal reply her father had taught her. "The Celestial Empire brings greetings to your world. May our stars shine together." The humans looked so excited, so hopeful. They didn't understand that the only reason the mighty Astra Empire had let Earth join their alliance was because the planet sat at a useful point between two rival alien groups. That and her father had thought it might be amusing. The formal meeting moved inside a large glass building. Lyra sat through boring speeches, her silver eyes scanning the crowd. Most humans stared at her with open wonder or tried too hard not to stare. Both reactions annoyed her. Then she noticed him, a human man standing by the wall, watching everything but not gawking at her. He wore the same dark suit as other human staff, but something about him was different. When their eyes met, he didn't look away in fear or bow his head. He just gave a small nod, as if they were equals. How strange. Later, during the reception, Lyra found herself bored with the same old questions. "Yes, our ships do travel faster than light." "No, not all Astra can read minds." "Thank you, but I don't eat animal flesh." She walked away from the group, heading toward a quiet corner with a view of the city lights. The human man from earlier was there, looking out the window. "Your world has beautiful lights," she said, surprising herself by starting a conversation. He turned, not jumping in surprise like most would. "They make up for our lack of natural glow, Princess." Was that humor? Astra rarely joked with royalty. "You know who I am, of course," she said. "Everyone knows who you are. I'm Jack. No title, no family name, just Jack." "What is your position here, Jack?" "I help where needed. Mostly I make sure people get where they need to go and understand what they need to know." He smiled a little. "I translate complicated things into simple ones." "You don't seem impressed by my presence," Lyra said, finding his directness refreshing. Jack shrugged. "I'm impressed by the ship that got you here and the civilization that built it. But I learned long ago that important people are still just people." A small alarm sounded from his pocket. He checked a device. "Excuse me, Princess. There's a small issue I need to handle." Lyra watched him walk away, moving with a quiet confidence. She had met warriors, princes, and geniuses from 50 worlds, but this simple human had somehow caught her attention. "Princess," Vex appeared at her side. "You shouldn't speak alone with humans. They are beneath your station." "Perhaps," Lyra said, still watching Jack disappear into the crowd. "But they are interesting, aren't they?" For the first time since arriving, Lyra felt truly curious about this planet and its people. Perhaps this diplomatic mission wouldn't be so boring after all. "You want him as your what?" Commander Vex's silver eyes widened in shock. "My human cultural liaison," Princess Lyra repeated calmly. She stood by the large window in her quarters, watching the sunrise over Earth's ocean. "I believe his name is Jack." "But Princess, we have already selected the highest-ranking humans to guide you. This, Jack, is merely a mid-level aide." Lyra turned to face her commander. That's exactly why I want him. The others only show me what they think I want to see. I need someone who will show me the real Earth. 3 hours later, Jack stood awkwardly in the grand meeting room of the Astra ship. Human officials looked at him with confusion and envy. The Astra guards watched him with barely hidden disgust. Mr. Jack, Princess Lyra entered, her dress flowing like water around her tall frame. Thank you for accepting my invitation. I'm not sure it was an invitation I could refuse, Princess, Jack said with a small smile. A few gasps came from both human and Astra officials. No one spoke to the princess that way. To everyone's surprise, Lyra laughed. Perhaps not. Shall we begin our cultural exchange? Over the next week, Jack took Lyra to places no official tour would include. They visited a busy market where people from all over the world sold food, clothes, and art. They watched children play in a park. They sat in a small coffee shop where the owner didn't recognize Lyra and treated her just like any other customer. Your world is so loud, Lyra said as they walked through a crowded street. On my planet, everything is ordered, peaceful. Sounds boring, Jack replied, then quickly added, I mean, different cultures value different things. Lyra smiled. No, you were right the first time. It can be boring. That's why I wanted to see Earth. Your people create so much with so little. As they turned a corner, Jack suddenly stopped. His eyes narrowed at something across the street. What is it? Lyra asked. Nothing. Just thought I saw someone I knew. His hand moved slightly toward his side, then relaxed. Let's go this way instead. Lyra noticed the small movement. It reminded her of her royal guards when they sensed danger. Interesting. Later that day, they visited a museum showing human art through the ages. Your art changes so quickly, Lyra observed. Astra art has looked mostly the same for thousands of years. That's because we don't live very long, Jack explained. We have to keep trying new things before our time runs out. Is that why humans rush everywhere? Because of your short lives? Jack thought for a moment. Partly. But I think it's also because we know we're not the strongest or smartest beings. We have to adapt to survive. As they walked back toward the ship, 3 young men bumped into them hard. One grabbed Lyra's royal pendant. Sorry, alien lady, he laughed, running away. Before Lyra could react, Jack moved. He jumped over a bench, cut through a small garden, and caught the thief in seconds. With quick, precise movements, he took back the pendant and pinned the man against a wall. Not a good idea, Jack said quietly to the thief. The penalty for stealing from the princess is much worse than anything I'll do to you. Run. The man ran. Jack returned to Lyra, handing her the pendant, as if nothing unusual had happened. But Lyra had seen everything. You move like a warrior, she said, not like a diplomatic aide. Jack shrugged. I had different jobs before this one. You're full of surprises, Jack. Back on the ship that night, Commander Vex approached Lyra. Princess, there's something you should know about your human guide. We've discovered he used to be part of their special military forces. He could be dangerous. Lyra looked out at the Earth lights twinkling below. Yes, I think he is dangerous, she said with a smile. But not to me. Far away in the ship's communication room, 2 Astra officials spoke in hushed tones. This cannot continue, one said. The princess is becoming too fond of these primitives. We must act soon to ensure Earth never fully joins our alliance. The Grand Plaza was filled with thousands of people. Humans from all over the world came to see Princess Lyra sign the friendship agreement between Earth and the Celestial Empire. Huge screens showed her purple glowing face as she walked toward the stage. Jack stood to the side, watching the crowd carefully. Something felt wrong. The Astra guards looked perfect in their shining armor, but they were used to formal ceremonies, not real danger. Too many people, he muttered to himself. Too many places to hide. On stage, the human president welcomed Princess Lyra. Today marks a historic moment for humanity, he said into the microphone. We join the stars as partners with the mighty Astra. Lyra stepped forward to speak. The sun made her silver eyes shine even brighter. People of Earth, the Celestial Empire welcomes you as. Jack saw it before anyone else. A small flash from a building window. A red dot appearing on Lyra's chest. Without thinking, he moved. Down, he shouted, running onto the stage and pushing Lyra to the floor just as something whistled through the air where she had been standing. Chaos erupted. People screamed. The Astra guards froze for a moment, confused by the sudden attack. Their princess was never in danger at home. Stay down, Jack told Lyra, covering her body with his own. He looked around quickly. We need to move. Now. More shots came from different directions. This was no single attacker. It was a coordinated assault. The royal guards finally reacted, forming a circle around them. But they were in the open, exposed. The building behind us, Jack said to the lead guard. We need to get inside. We wait for backup, the guard replied stiffly. Jack shook his head. No time. He looked at Lyra. Do you trust me? She nodded without hesitation. Jack grabbed a metal tray from a nearby table and a fallen flagpole. When I say move, we run for the door. I'll go first. You stay close behind me. The guards began to argue, but Lyra cut them off. Do as he says. Using the tray as a shield, Jack led them toward the building. More shots came. One hit the tray, making Jack's arm shake, but he kept it up. Another shooter appeared on their right. Without stopping, Jack threw the flagpole like a spear, hitting the attacker perfectly. They were halfway to safety when three figures in black jumped down in front of them. The Astra guards moved to fight but were slow, used to enemies who followed proper battle rules. These attackers didn't. Jack grabbed a fallen chair, smashing it against the first attacker. He ducked under another's punch, then used the man's own weight to throw him into the third. It wasn't pretty or formal, but it worked. Move, Jack shouted, and they all ran the final distance to the door. Inside, they found a small room to hide in while security cleared the area. The Astra guards looked at Jack with new eyes. Confusion, surprise, and reluctant respect. How did you know? Lyra asked, her voice steady despite everything. I noticed people leaving the crowd in patterns, security focused in the wrong places. Jack shrugged. Old habits. You saved my life, she said simply. Just doing my job. No, she touched his arm. Your job was to show me Earth. Fighting assassins was not in your job description. Videos of Jack's actions spread quickly across Earth, then to other planets. Humans watched with pride as one of their own protected the alien princess. The Astra watched with shock, seeing a primitive human move faster and think quicker than their elite guards. In a dark room far away, angry voices argued. The attack failed, one said. We underestimated the human, another replied. It won't happen again. Back in the safety of her ship, Lyra watched recordings of the attack. She focused on Jack's face. Calm, determined, fearless. Humans were supposed to be weak, yet this one had saved her when her own people couldn't. Maybe, she thought, we've been wrong about humans all along. 3 weeks after the attack, things had changed. The Astra ship now orbited Earth instead of sitting on the ground. Security was tighter, and Princess Lyra had insisted that Jack join her personal staff, despite protests from her advisors. They sat in the ship's garden room, surrounded by strange plants from dozens of worlds. Jack watched as Lyra touched a blue flower that closed, then opened again under her fingers. On my world, these flowers sing at night, she said. I miss that sound. Do you miss home? Jack asked. Lyra looked at him with her silver eyes. Less than I expected to. She moved closer to him on the bench. Your world is alive in a way mine isn't. We have order. You have chaos, but also freedom. Jack was very aware of how close she sat. She smelled like nothing on Earth, like starlight, if starlight had a smell. High Advisor mocks it as I spend too much time with you, she said quietly. "And what do you think, Princess?" "I think." She hesitated, then reached out to touch his hand. "I think I don't spend enough time with you." The air between them seemed to hum. Jack knew he should pull away. She was not just from another world, but royalty from another world. And yet, he couldn't move. "Lyra," he said, dropping her title for the first time. Their moment was broken by Commander Vex rushing in. "Princess, urgent message from the Emperor." Lyra stood quickly. "I'll be right there." When she was gone, Vex turned cold eyes to Jack. "The Emperor calls her home. You will soon be unnecessary, human." Jack nodded, trying to hide his feelings. "I serve at the pleasure of the Princess and Earth's government." "Indeed," Vex said with a thin smile. "And what do you think will please the Princess more? A short time with a human who will age and die in what we consider a blink, or the future of your entire planet in our alliance?" Jack felt his heart sink. Of course, Earth's place in the alliance wasn't secure yet. If the Princess's interest in him threatened that. Later that night, Lyra found Jack on the observation deck, looking down at Earth. "My father wants me home," she said without greeting. "To choose a mate from the warrior class, as tradition demands." Jack nodded, not trusting himself to speak. "I refused," she added. He turned to her in surprise. "You refused the Emperor?" "I told him I needed more time on Earth to complete my mission." She stepped closer. He was not pleased. "Lyra, I can't be the reason Earth loses its place in the Alliance. Your people could help humanity in so many ways. Is that all you care about? The Alliance?" "No," Jack admitted. "But I have to think about more than just what I want." Lyra touched his face gently. "They think humans are weak, but you're the strongest person I've ever met." "Not here." She touched his arm. "But here." She moved her hand to his heart. The ship's alarm suddenly blared. Red lights flashed in the corridors. "What's happening?" Jack asked. Lyra's face paled. "It's an Imperial signal." "My father." The door slid open. There stood a tall Astra male wearing ornate armor covered in glowing symbols. His face looked like an older, sterner version of Lyra's. "Father," Lyra whispered, quickly stepping away from Jack. Emperor Terrace's silver eyes moved from his daughter to Jack, then back again. "So it's true," he said, his voice deep and cold. "My daughter, the Imperial Princess, has developed feelings for a human." He looked at Jack with disgust. "Pack your things, human. The Princess returns home immediately." "Father," Lyra began. "Enough." The Emperor raised his hand. "This inappropriate interest ends now. The alliance with Earth will be reconsidered." Jack bowed his head. "I understand, Your Majesty." But Lyra stepped forward, her face determined. "No, Father. I will not go." The Emperor's face darkened with anger. "You dare defy me, daughter?" "I invoke the right of choice," Lyra said, her voice strong despite her fear. The room fell silent. Even the Emperor looked shocked. "The right of choice," he finally said. "That ancient law has not been used in 500 years. But it still exists," Lyra insisted. "Any royal who finds a mate outside the traditional classes may have them prove their worth through the 3 trials." Jack looked between them, confused. "What are you talking about?" Lyra turned to him, hope in her silver eyes. "Our oldest laws say that anyone can earn the right to join the royal family if they pass 3 tests of body, mind, and character." The Emperor laughed coldly. "You waste our time, daughter. No human could possibly pass the trials." "Then you have nothing to fear by allowing it," Lyra challenged. Jack stepped forward. "If I may speak, Your Majesty." The Emperor looked at him with surprise, as if he'd forgotten Jack was there. "I don't know what these trials are," Jack continued, "but unwilling to try them. For Earth's place in the Alliance. And," he glanced at Lyra, "for other reasons." The Emperor studied Jack for a long moment. You do not know what you offer, human. The trials have killed Astra warriors far stronger than you. Then it should be entertaining for you to watch me fail, Jack replied. A small smile crossed the Emperor's face. Indeed. Very well, I accept the challenge in the name of tradition. But when you fail, daughter, you will return home and choose an appropriate mate, and Earth's position in our alliance will be reconsidered. News of the challenge spread quickly. Across Earth, humans watched with worry and hope. Would one man's performance determine their planet's future? On the day of the first trial, thousands gathered to watch. The Emperor had ordered a special arena built in an open field. Astra officials sat on one side, humans on the other. Jack stood in the center wearing simple clothes. He looked small compared to the 4 Astra warriors who would be his opponents. The first trial tests the body, announced the Emperor from his high seat. The human must defeat all 4 warriors to pass. Lyra sat beside her father, her face tense. This isn't fair, she whispered. 4 against 1. Life isn't fair, daughter, the Emperor replied. Especially for those who break tradition. The warriors circled Jack, their bodies glowing with power. Each was at least a foot taller than him, and much stronger. Begin, shouted the Emperor. The first warrior rushed forward, expecting an easy victory. But Jack wasn't where he had been. He moved quickly to the side, using the warrior's own speed against him. When the warrior turned, Jack was already behind him, striking at the backs of his knees where the armor was weaker. The crowd gasped as the mighty Astra warrior fell. The other 3 attacked together. Jack couldn't match their strength, but he was faster, more adaptable. He used the arena itself, the ground, the walls, even the weapons they dropped. One by one, the warriors fell, not because Jack was stronger, but because he was unpredictable. He didn't fight like they had been trained to fight. When the last warrior stayed down, the arena was silent. Then, from the human side, cheers erupted. Jack stood in the center, breathing hard, bleeding from several cuts, but victorious. The Emperor's face showed no emotion. You have passed the first trial, human. But the trial of mind will not be so easily conquered by your physical tricks. Lyra caught Jack's eye across the arena and smiled. He had passed 1 test, but 2 more remained, and they would only get harder. Take him to recover, the Emperor ordered. The second trial begins tomorrow. The arena looked different for the second trial. Instead of an open space, it now held a large maze made of shimmering blue walls that changed position every few minutes. Jack stood at the entrance, still sore from yesterday's fight. Lyra had managed to visit him briefly the night before. The trial of mind is not just about solving puzzles, she had warned. It's about adapting when the rules change. Now facing the maze, her words made sense. The Emperor sat high above, watching with cold eyes. The second trial tests the mind, he announced. In the center of this maze is a crystal key. Find it and open the final door before the maze fills with water. Jack took a deep breath and entered as soon as the signal was given. The walls hummed with strange energy. He could feel them preparing to move. Unlike the Astra contestants who had done this trial before, Jack didn't try to memorize the pattern. Instead, he touched the wall and felt small vibrations. The walls shift toward the center, he muttered to himself. They want me to get lost. Instead of fighting the maze's design, Jack used it. When the walls moved, he let them push him, using their momentum to guide him deeper. Several times he found himself in dead ends filling with water, but he remained calm, looking for patterns in how the water flowed. In the stands, Astra officials watched with growing concern. He's not following the traditional solution path, one whispered. He's using the water flow to map the maze, another realized. No one has tried that before. The Emperor leaned forward, his interest finally caught. Jack was now waist-deep in cold water, but he smiled as he reached a small platform. There sat the crystal key, glowing softly. Just as he grabbed it, the walls shifted again, and water poured in faster. The key was supposed to help him find the exit, but the path was now completely different. Instead of panicking, Jack took a deep breath and dove under the water. The key glowed brighter near certain walls. It's not just a key, he realized. It's a guide. Following the key's glow, Jack swam through the flooded maze. His lungs burned, his muscles ached, but he pushed on. Just when he thought he couldn't hold his breath any longer, he surfaced in a small air pocket. Taking a quick breath, he dove again, following the key's light to a door nearly hidden in the wall. He inserted the key, turned it, and the door opened. Water rushed through, carrying him out into the open arena. Gasping for air, Jack lay on the ground as the maze drained. The crowd was silent, then erupted in cheers, not just from the human side this time, but from some Astra too. The Emperor stood. "The human has passed the second trial," he announced, surprise evident in his voice. "Tomorrow comes the final test, the trial of character." Later, in a quiet corner away from guards, Lyra found Jack. "You're doing the impossible," she said, her voice full of wonder. "No non-Astra has ever passed 2 trials." "What's the third trial?" Jack asked. "I need to prepare." Lyra shook her head. "No one knows until it begins. The trial of character is different for each person. It finds your deepest weakness." Jack took her hand. "Why are you doing this, Lyra? Risking your position, your father's anger?" She looked into his eyes. "Because in all the galaxy, with all its advanced races and mighty warriors, I've never met anyone like you. Your people have something we've lost: the will to grow, to change, to become more than you are. We just call that being human," Jack said with a small smile. "That's exactly what I want," Lyra whispered. "Not despite you being human. Because of it." In his private chamber, the Emperor reviewed recordings of Jack's trials. For the first time, doubt showed on his face. Perhaps there was more to these humans than he had thought. Tomorrow's final trial would reveal the truth, not just about this one human, but about whether humanity deserved a place among the stars. The final day arrived. The arena was now a simple circle with 2 chairs in the center, one for Jack, one for the Emperor. The crowd was larger than before. Even aliens from other worlds had come to watch the human who had passed 2 trials. Jack entered wearing clean, simple clothes. He looked tired but determined. "The third trial tests character," the Emperor announced. "It is different for each person, because each person has different weaknesses in their heart." Jack sat in the chair across from the Emperor. Lyra watched from nearby, not allowed to speak or help. "I will look into your mind, human," the Emperor said quietly. "You cannot hide your thoughts from me. Are you ready?" Jack nodded. The Emperor reached out and placed his hands on either side of Jack's head. A soft purple glow surrounded them both. Inside Jack's mind, images flashed. His childhood, his time as a soldier, the people he had saved, the people he couldn't save. "Interesting," the Emperor's voice echoed in his thoughts. "You carry much pain." "Everyone does," Jack replied. "What would you do for power, human? If I offered you the strength of the Astra, the ability to live for centuries, would you take it?" Jack saw images of himself with the purple glow of the Astra, powerful and nearly immortal. "No," he said simply. "No." The Emperor seemed surprised. "Why not?" "Because that's not what makes us human. Our short lives make us value each day. Our weakness makes us work together. Our struggles make us kind." The Emperor pushed deeper into Jack's mind. "And what about my daughter? Do you love her enough to give up your world?" Jack saw Earth burning, destroyed by Astro weapons, while he lived in luxury with Lyra. "That's not love," Jack said firmly. "Love is wanting what's best for others, not just yourself. I would never accept that choice." "Then what would you accept?" the Emperor demanded. Jack showed his own thought. Earth and the Astra working together, learning from each other. Humans gaining technology and knowledge, the Astra gaining creativity and passion. "We don't need to be the same to be equal," Jack said. "Different strengths make us all stronger together." The purple glow faded. The Emperor removed his hands from Jack's head. The arena was silent, waiting. "The human has passed the third trial," the Emperor finally announced, his voice different than before, softer, thoughtful. Cheers erupted from all sides. Lyra rushed forward, her eyes shining. The Emperor held up his hand for silence. "I have seen inside this human's mind. He does not seek power or glory. He seeks understanding, growth." He looked at his daughter. "And he loves not just you, Lyra, but his people, his world." Jack stood, still a bit dizzy from the mental connection. "For 5,000 years, the Astra have believed we were superior to all other races," the Emperor continued. "We have grown stagnant in that belief. Perhaps," he looked at Jack, "perhaps we have something to learn from humanity after all." He stepped forward, and to everyone's shock, extended his hand to Jack in the human way of greeting. "The alliance with Earth will be strengthened, not reconsidered. And if my daughter chooses you, I will not stand in her way." Jack shook the Emperor's hand, unable to find words. Lyra moved to Jack's side, taking his other hand. "I don't want Jack despite him being human," she said loudly enough for all to hear. "I want him because he is human, because his people remind us of what we once were, and what we could be again." The Emperor nodded. "Then perhaps this alliance will benefit the Astra even more than it benefits Earth." As Jack stood between Lyra and her father, he thought about how far he had come. One ordinary human proving that humanity deserved its place among the stars. Not because they were the strongest or smartest, but because they were different, because they were human. And sometimes, being human was the greatest strength of all.